make some adjustments to our... what's that?
She's like, the sourdough bread is out of stock. Would you like something else? And like, these are the pictures that she sends me. I'm like, I can't see or read anything.
Yeah. All right. I'll get fired up here. It always bugs me the tiniest bit that my phone is not coplanar to my screen. It's just it's totally just me being, I'm trying to line up my phone so things are square, and I'll try not to be picky about it. It is what it is. Okay, let's see. Last week we worked on a transcription, and I thought, I'm going to skip that this week. It was really hard. For me anyway, that was very challenging. It was a pretty advanced transcription. What was that? Irene Fine. And I'd like to have a lot more of that done. But then I thought, this week let's get back to that story we're working on before. So this is, what's it called? Gaayaso mitonawao. You will pass them on to one another. This is on the Cree Literacy Network. We worked through all of this, and we got to 22, 23. I think we left off down here somewhere last time. And I don't remember all of the context of the story, so let me just read through this again to try and get back to where we were. Because the story was about a baby was born. He grew up with light skin. He grew up with his cousin. One of them was he said, I'm going to set off. So then he went out. He came to a river. Rawhide ropes. He crossed the river. We're just getting caught up here. There was no more bush, nothing but prairie. Then he saw these buffalo. He startled them. He watched carefully to see where they went, and he followed them back there. He told his cousin, I'm going to get everything ready. Come with me. As soon as it's spring, we're going to set out. And then he got ready. That was about 14. Prepared everything. His cousin was afraid of those animals. And then he said, I'm going to kill it. You'll see. And then the animal jumped and ran off. He had killed it. Animal's head they saved to take home, for the people at home would not believe him how those animals looked. I think he's talking about the buffalo. They packed up all the dry meat they could. They went home. It took them a long time. And then they told the story. They brought the meat, all the meat they had dried. The people tried it. They liked the taste. I think this is about where we left off. So now they retrieved the head. Okay. I don't know why my little thing turned blue there. I'm going to change it back to... I'm like, how did that change color? That was weird. It was pink. Show toolbar. It just changed to blue randomly on its own. I prefer... Yeah, that's better. It's just easier to see that pink. Oh, that's interesting. I can change the color by sliding sideways. That's fun. Okay, so ghost mode. That's fine. Got it. Okay. How minstagwanegwa ganata kick so what we're doing is we're breaking down the verbs. This is just a method of study that I use. I just want to kind of share with folks. When we're reading stories, lots of times when we're studying, we tend to learn nouns like mistagwan. Mistagwan is like a head, right? Aisinu is like a person or a native person. Aisinu. And Kosquapsniua. We'll come back to that. So we tend to learn like nouns and stuff, but I study the verbs because, well, the verbs and then the what we call particles. Because sometimes when you get into these, like, I don't know, you might know like pitos, which is like it's different, Or you run into like eugomas, like what does that mean? Right? Or let me find another one here that we might know. Natagam, like we might not know what that means. And lots of times you run into these particles and they change the meaning of they really influence the phrasing. See, it could be like, further or from that point in time or something like that. And then the other thing I like to study is the verbs. Because again, without all of these pieces, it would be difficult to understand what the story means. So, ganatakik. So what does that mean? Ganatakik. So this one in particular, because of that HK is there, that tells me that this is it's probably natam is the word. Oops, natam, which is to fetch it. They fetched. Natam specifically would be that one fetches something. Natam. Fetches it, goes for something. I guess maybe approach something. But it's in it's in what they call the conjunct. That ga. If it was just one person, it'd be ganata, like that. But that gik on the end means them. They did it. So that's those ones. The P, you'll see that sometimes that means plural. Those ones, they fetched it. How minstagwa negwa ganata kik. So they went and fetched that head. Epewa pa taha tik aisinu. We talk about this a lot, that wa on the end. Because if you say, normally when you say more than one person, you would say aisinuak, right? So let's break that down. We'll break down both of these. We'll talk about this one, and then we'll talk about this. Because the reason that wa is on the end there is directly related to this word. Ewa pa tahatsik. And why that wa is on the end. But we'll break that down. Why is that? So normally if you say like a person, a native person, aisinu, okay, a native person. In this case, they're probably talking about Nehio people, but aisinu is a person, or is it, do I have those backwards? There's Iinu and there's aisinu. Or maybe aisinu is just a person and Iinu is a native person. Let's look that up because I get those confused. Iinu. Okay, Iinu is a native person. Aisinu is just a person, I think. Aisinu, people. Okay, I had those backwards. That's okay. So Aisinu, but that's just one person. If you have more than one, typically you will have ak, people. That's like plural if you want to think of it that way. That ak on the end. And you hear that a lot with because we have two types of nouns, what we call animate and inanimate. And so being that this is an animate noun, aisinwak, you put that ak on the end, and that means more than one. If it was just, but what we're talking about here is why do we say aisinua? Because usually when you pluralize something in the language, like let's take so this is what they call an animate noun, N-A, which just means animate noun. Animate's kind of an unfortunate word because there's some things that are animate, quote unquote, animate, that aren't conventionally animate, like a rock, like rocks, a siniak. There's some other ones, Bahkwesikan, which is Bannock. Bahkwesiganak is animate. There's some other ones too, like a spoon, and you can argue why it's animate. We're not really going to go into that today. You just kind of, but then there's these other ones which we call inanimate nouns. In the language. And that would be an example of a mohkuman, or what's a good one? Mohkuman, mohkumana. Yeah, we can use that. Mohkuman. Is that a long O? Mohkuman or mohkuman? Mohkuman. Yeah, it's a long mohkuman, which is a knife. But then if you have more than one, mohkuman is knives. More than one. That's weird. Weird rule in English where you don't say knives, you say knives for whatever reason. I'm sure there's reasons for that. So the interesting thing about this is when we're talking about aisinu, and then we say in the story we're saying epewa pataha tsek aisinu wa. So then the question is, well, why is it wa and not wak? Because typically we would only put wa on a noun if it was plural inanimate, right? So why would you do that? Why would you have that wa? And the reason is because there's this thing called in the not to get into the linguistics or whatever, but there's actually two positions. So there's this third person, okay, that's like aisinu. You could think of it that way, as like that one, that person. That could be like aisinu, okay. And then there's another one here. Sorry, I got a P there. It should be an S. Third person singular. The S means singular. It's just like one of them, one person. Then this one is the plural, those ones. So you could think of that. That's like aisinwak. But in the language, there's this other position, this other person, and you could sort of think of it as like the fourth person, but they mark it like this. And I'll say that other one. There's a name for this person here. They call that this one, by the way, is what they call proximate, and all that means is kind of in focus or like closer, like more in proximity, like in the context maybe. And then there's this other one that's called the obviate. It's a little bit further away, if you want to think of it that way. Maybe not physically further away, but just like in terms of the focus or the context. I saw something a fluent speaker use the obviate in an interesting way yesterday that I wanted to talk about. We'll come back to it. But the interesting to note is that this could be this obviate. It can be that other one, or it can also be those other ones. It can be either singular or plural. It can be singular or plural. So, and the reason this is important, we've talked about this before, but I'll just keep talking about it because this is one of those things that's important to understand when you're getting into an intermediate level language. Oh, I got somebody just buses liking the live, just lots. Mias and When you've got a word that involves, so this is how this works. Let's take a look at that word, a wapatahatsik. Okay, so that comes from wapataheu. Okay, so let's look at that. Wapataheu. I got a story about this word. We were cutting up moose. At where? I think we just got finished at. I think it was Sundance or something. Everybody tore down camp. We went back up to Cookum's place. We're cut and Cookum said, "Here, cut up this moose," and she threw this moose leg on the table. Somebody left it behind, or something like that. Was it? It was some camp. Maybe it was. I can't remember what camp it was. Anyway, and somebody come in and they said, "Oh, that's not how you cut up a moose. You're supposed to cut it up right." I said, "Oh, that way. Bewa patayanan. Come and show us." And Kokum said, "Da way." Anyway, so this word means that person shows somebody else something to somebody else, okay? And so how this works is, if we look at that word, it means this person shows it to someone else. And so the thing is I'm just gonna, I'll pull that word in for a second, wapataheo. We'll come back to why it's wapatahatik. We'll come back to that in a second. We're just gonna focus on the people involved for now. So wapataheo. So let me grab that, put it in here. And by the way, if you have questions, just drop them in the chat if I'm going too fast or whatever. Because this isn't like class or whatever. We're just studying. So that one shows it to that other one. I'm going to color code these just so they make a little more sense. How do I do that? Where's the color button? Let's do highlight color. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So we'll say that one's going to be green. So that's this one here. See if I can find that button again. That one. Green. Okay. Those are the same. And then that other one will make it blue. So hopefully that makes sense when you look at this. Now this isn't going to help you like memorize it or whatever. You have to kind of work on these. That other one. So that other one. Okay. We'll make this one blue. There. Okay. So wapataheo. So what this means is that one shows it to that one, shows it to that other one. Now the thing about this is, I'm going to pick on my brothers because I always use my brothers as an example. I'm going to say my brothers are Bill and Warren, okay? But if I said, oh, Bill and Warren are standing over there, he shows it to him. Say it's like a knife. He shows the knife to him. So the question is, who's showing it to who? Who's showing the knife to who? Let me put that other sentence in there, okay? Bill and Warren are standing over there. He shows the knife to him. Who in this context is this person, the one that's showing, and who in this context is the other person that's being shown to? Who's who? In English, we have to clarify. If I said, oh, he's standing over there, he's talking to him, you'd be like, who's talking to who? You say, oh, well, Bill's talking to Warren, right? We would have to clarify. Ganehiuyan, when you're speaking the Cree language, you don't have to clarify because that's baked into the word, okay? And how you bake that into the word, how you indicate who this person is, the one being shown stuff, the one that's in the position of being shown, again, what we call that obviate, that's the word they call that. This is the proximate person, the person in focus. This is the obviate person, the person in that's being the target or the direction of the action, if that makes sense, okay? How we indicate that is with that wa. That's what that is, okay? That wa on the end, if it's an animate noun, it's a dead giveaway that person is in this position. We have to, if I said Bill, and I've just used some English in some Cree in my English, Warren wa, or it could be or it could be wa. Sometimes it's sometimes it's wa. Okay? If I said Bill and Warren wa are standing over there, he shows the knife to him, I know immediately the him that's being shown is Warren. Because that's how Cree works. Okay? Or I could do it the other way. Bill wa and Warren are standing over there. He shows the knife to him. Now I know the one being shown the knife to is Bill. That's how Cree works. That's how the language works. Okay? That's how that works. That's why that's there. That's why that is asiniwa and not asiniwak. Okay? Epewapa tahatik. He showed that buffalo head to the people, not the other way around. Okay, so let's go over that again. How? Mr. Guanegua ganatakik. They went and got that head. Epe wapataha tsikaisinua. Now, in this context, this means when or as. As they showed that head to the people, wah, kusquapsiniua. There's that iua again. Let's look at this word, kusquapisin, because kusquapisin. Let's look at that word. That's a kind of a special word. If you study the kusquapisin, where they're startled or surprised. But if we look at that again, if we look at the, if you go to this Itueona, this, what they call Smart Cree Dictionary, I guess. You click on that and you can see all of these different ones. If you look at that, you see, they mark it with a 4. Sometimes you'll see that. If you're in the other books like Matsuni Huiwin or like Gino Kimasa's book or any of the other books, that other person, they'll mark it like this with the 3 and an apostrophe. But sometimes you'll see it marked as a 4, right? So again, that word, kosquapsaniua, we're still talking about the people. The people were startled or surprised, okay? Those other ones, these ones here, kosquapsaniua. So let's read over that one more time. Mr. Guanegua, ganatakik. Ganatakik. This is those two that dude and his cousin. Epewapataha tsika aisinua. As they showed it to the people, or when they showed it to the people, they brought it. They came to show it to the people. In this context, we call this the E-conjunct, the conjunct mode. The E-conjunct. In this, because it's, the way I understand this, because it's at the beginning of the sentence, it sort of means when. As they, when they brought and showed it to the people, they were really surprised. What does it say over here? They were amazed. So now they retrieved the head and brought it to show the people. Wah, they were amazed. So that's that obviate. So this one here, they showed it to the people. The people were amazed. Not the people bringing the head. I mean, they might have been too, but that's not what the sentence says. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We egote. Egagwata. Oh, it's a big word. Gagwataga chihotik. O magape puk natagam. Okay, there's a lot going on in there, so let's. We egote, that, I guess that one, we is like, we can be a person or it can be something, a reference to something. That one. We. If we look that up. Yeah. Or theirs, I guess. So in this particular case, it could be a pronoun or it could be what they call a particle, which is like a particle you can think of as like something that changes the sentence. So it could be for emphasis. I'm not a fluent speaker, I'm a learner. So when I'm studying this and I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, what does this say? I don't know this word. Kagwataga tsiutik. O magape puk. When it snowed. Natagam. That's like across the natagam. Okay, there's a lot of words in here I don't understand. So let's go one at a time. So in this case, again, it could be, here's some other examples of we. It could be like for, because, of course, to be sure, in fact, this, that, as, for, by contrast. This is one of those words that can mean a lot of things. We, depending on how it's used, and that's one of the more challenging things to understand. Like there's a lot of, when you're learning Nihiuiwan, there's a lot of, what I'll say, oh, I keep pushing the wrong button here. Vocabulary, right? There's a lot of like nouns and verbs to learn, but for me, it's these particles that are challenging because they change the context. Phrasing things, how to phrase things correctly is just so challenging. So that's why we study, hey? Whoops, okay. So let me read that again. E kagwataga tiu tiku magape puknatagam. So I'm going to look up this word first. Kagwatagatiho. So it's going to be kagwatagatiho, I think is the verb. Let's see if we can find it. Kagwatagatiho. There it is there. Someone suffers dreadfully, lives through a dreadful time. That's an interesting word. Whenever you see these, see or hear that H there, it makes me wonder if you can change that to say, no. If you can say, kagwatagachiheo, like to make somebody suffer dreadfully. Maybe that's not a word. Sometimes you see that H, and then when you see that OW on the end, or that O, that's a short version of what they call a reflexive, so it means like you're oneself, I guess. But I don't actually know this word. More reading, less grammar. Yeah, I guess I don't mind reading more. I'm doing the breakdown because if it's not helpful for you, this is just my method of study, and I find that helps me to learn, to understand. When you say this, who are you talking about? It's like, okay, what does that word mean? What does that word mean? I got to go look it up. I got to look up what this means. And then sometimes I talk about the grammar because this next line here, Eogo he. Tortamwak eogo. Eosame atiyit. Who are we talking about here? Egote epasquag. Moyeta manestik. The meatstik. Right? There's like a lot going on in there. Mageg segwa. Wisipwetewak. So that last sentence I understand. This one mostly I understand. There's a bunch of words in here I don't understand. So, and I tend to slow down and talk about the grammar because I talk to a lot of other learners who are at that level where these things they still find confusing, and I get a lot of questions about them. If it's too slow for you, that's fine. I mean, feel free to, you can go read this yourself. Not to say that we won't do more reading. Not telling you to go. I'm just trying to balance it out for everybody who's hanging out, because I know a lot of learners who are at this level are struggling with the grammar or the meaning of the things when you put them together. So that's why I'm moving slowly. Natagam. Let's put these together. One piece at a time. Natagam. This is Y dialect. Nihiuiwan. Yeah. Nihiuiwan Plains Cree Y dialect. Yeah. Natagam. Across the water, which is what my brain thought it meant, but I didn't want to say it out loud. In case I was wrong. Natagam. Kapepuk. Okay, Wiagoti. Those ones there, they were having a dreadful time. Oma. This Oma is there for emphasis, or that's the way I understand it. They're saying it's like for emphasis. In fact, they were having a dreadful time. I want to say, I'm going to phrase this wrong, but like kapipuk, when it snowed across the water, I guess. Let's go read the English and see what it says. People who lived the woodlands in those days suffered hard times in the winter. Okay, that makes sense. Lived in the woodlands, I'm guessing they mean. So that's interesting. Those ones. It's so that we at the beginning, it's almost like it's generalizing the statement, I guess. Would you say that? Right? This is one of those things where when I read that, for me, like that we was that referencing something we had read before, but it seems like that we was sort of generalizing the statement. Eogo he atotamwak. So the atotam is to tell about something, like tell a story about something specifically. Atotam. To tell about something, give an account of something. But here we are again, it's plural. Atotamwak. Eogo, that one or this one. Eosame, I don't know this word. Osame etiet. Osameyati. Let me see if we can find that one. Osameyatin. Osameyatu. Atuak. Okay, would expect to be plural, wouldn't it? They are numerous. The question is, oma at the end of a word only for emphasis, or could it also mean something else? So oma generally is a pronoun like this, uma. If I say muhkumano uma, this knife, or like this is a knife, muhkumano uma, this is a knife. Oma muhkuman, this knife, right? In this particular case, the oma is there for emphasis. It's, for me, it's emphasizing this word, the fact that they were having a difficult time. It's just one of those patterns where, yeah, in this case, because if you say Nino tegetan, I'm hungry, right? Which just, that's what it means. Nino tegetan. I am hungry. If you say Nino tegetanoma, you're sort of like emphasizing. You're like you're pointing it out. You're making it. It's like emphasis, or you're just kind of emphasizing it. Like like and if you look up in the sort of the books and stuff that talk about this. I think it's actually, I gave away that book, the Cree language. I think it was one of Frida Henneku's books. She talked about this oma, and it sort of means like in fact, maybe like they call it a factive, but it's just sort of emphasis. You know, take it down, oma. You're just like sort of emphasizing the fact that you're hungry, right? And you'll see that sometimes, like even unma can point to things. Eogo is definitely a pointer. This oma for me just is like a pointer to this thing I've just stated. It's just emphasizing it. You don't take it that oma. If that makes sense. I am in fact hungry. You're still in this. Both of these to me mean the same thing. I am hungry. Just the second one, you're just sort of emphasizing it a little bit more. I guess you could think of it that way. That's what that means to me. So in this case, that's the same. That oma is emphasizing this, the fact that they have a difficult time. And it's one of those things where if you listen to fluent speakers, I think it can be like a little bit of preference. Like some fluent speakers will say uma a lot. And it's like, I don't know. I can't tell you that it's changing the meaning of what they're saying necessarily. Maybe it is. Like it's one of those things that's really hard to pin down. Like the word like. How many times can you say like in a sentence? Like if I start like to say like all the time, like, right? Like why do you say that? Or am I emphasizing things? Is it just a habit? Like, what does it mean? Dan Friday says, I could say these things, but with an Ojibwe accent. Right on. Miasin. I don't know how to say that. How do you say that in Anishinaabe one? Miasin. I don't know how to, I know very little Anishinaabe one. I know like Buju, Anin. I used to know a few numbers, but I know very little. Kananakumanin, I know that one. I don't know. I think it means like Kananakumin, something like that. I don't know. I know very little Anishinaabe. Okay, let's keep going. Seogo he atotamwak. So these ones, eogo he atotamwak eogo. Something about being plentiful. Egote e pasquag. They're plentiful on the egote pasquag. Pasquag. Pasquao is the prairie. Okay, let's go read the English. That'll help us through this. But the cousins told them how plentiful the animals were there on the prairie. That makes sense. Moi ta manistik, ta mitstik, maneisu. Let's go look that up. So this one here, I recognize these words. Pasquao. So this is one of those ones where because I've studied the grammar, you don't have to, but I just know that particular one, that conjugation that ends with a K, like just a K, e pasquag, I know that's pasquao. That's where that word comes from. Because that's one of the conjugations for that type of verb, what they call VII. We're not going to talk about verb types today, but I just know because of that one in the conjunct, right? Pasquag, e pasquag, I just know that conjugation comes from this word. There's not many conjunctions that end in K. There's a few, like in the form of words when I say, I see that one. A wapamak, I know that ends in a K, but I know that word wapam. Wap comes from wapameo. And this particular one, this one has to be this particular type of verb. Or it's likely. So this is one of the instances where that will end in a K. So I know that one. What were some of the other words? Eosame, this one here with that yit, again, I recognize that yit on the end. And so I know we just finished talking about the obviate, that obviate there. So there's only so many conjugations that apply to the obviate, and that's one of them there. They are plentiful. So again, this can be one or more. We looked up that word, and this one means plentiful. Those ones they were just talking about. And that's the interesting thing that happens. Actually, we didn't talk about that, pronouns. So back here, that one, this is awa, and this is uge. I always forget I think it's a long O. Uge. Uge. Let me just double check that. Because I always forget. Uge. Yeah, long O. But when you get here, and maybe I'll color code those again. That one. This is the also green, but plural. Let's make it the same color just because. But in that obviate position, that one there, the pronoun for this one changes to ohe if they're close by, anehe if they're further. So it's almost like this is a pronoun that we use for inanimate things. Ohe, those ones, right? Mokumana ohe. Sorry, that's a long O. Ohe, I think so. Ohe. Yeah. So, which is interesting. So this inanimate gets the same pronoun as the obviate, which is interesting. So that's what he's saying here. Eogo he. these ones, referring back to the buffalo in this case, ato tamwak, the ones that they told about, eogo he ato tamwak, eogo eosameyatiit, they are plentiful, egote there, epasquag, where there is prairie, I guess you'd say, on the plains. So this one here, I was saying, because it's yit, I know this is going to be osameyatu. Well, and it'd have to be wak, they're saying. When we looked that up, it was plural. Osameyatu wak, it was saying. Because it is animated. There's some of these interesting verbs, like nutintawak, like those ones are fighting, they fight. Ito, you wouldn't normally just say nutinto, because you're already sort of implying multiple people or multiple whatever. So you typically say nutintawak. You wouldn't hear just nutinto on its own. And so that word we just looked up, osam metu atu, yeah, same thing. It's just sort of plural by default, I guess you could think of it that way. This word I don't know. So namoya ta manistik, that tik, I again recognize that conjugation. So that tells me this word is manesu. So let's go have a look at that. Manesu, IW, manesu, in need of something. Interesting word, manesu. Manesu. Moita manestik, the meat stick there, they wouldn't be in want of anything to eat. Is how I'm understanding that. This when you run into this ta, the way you learn that when you read like say Solomon Rath's book or something, they sort of teach this to mean like two, right? Like that's sort of the simplistic version of this. So if you're saying ta pimotean, this is me. This means sort of me to walk. That's sort of the way they teach that. This means me, for me to walk, I'm the subject. And the way you would use this in context is something like nimiwetin ta pimotean. That's the way they'll teach this. I like to walk. So then the to part, okay, is sort of this bit here. Ta pimotean. That's the way you'll learn this. Now, that gets confusing when you run into phrases like this. When you try to say namoya tamanistik tamitstik. So in this part of the sentence, it definitely means to. But in this part of the sentence, it doesn't really mean to anymore. It sort of means something else. And how I might explain that is this ta actually sort of means something that isn't, it's how do I explain it? I know the word, I know the academic, sorry, the linguistic word for this. It hasn't happened yet. You can think of it that way, or you can think of it as like not current reality. Okay? You can think of it that way. Hasn't happened yet, or not currently not currently reality. The academic word for this, or the linguistic word, is irrealis. You don't need to know that. So when you, instead of thinking of this as two, Billy asks, any prizes for the most hearts? Oh, wow, I got a lot of likes. That's amazing. I appreciate it. Kananaskum kakyo. Kami wait to make. The ones that like Omaya Tagaste Paitsagan, this video, this live. I don't know how to say live in the language. All of y'all that like this, though, I appreciate you. Kananaskum tinawao. I don't have prizes yet. I'm going to be giving away some books, though, pretty soon. Or if you have any questions, I mean, I can answer questions to the best of my ability. But if you're given lots of hearts, give your thumbs a break. Take a rest. Don't wear yourself out. So, so we sort of learn, when we start out, we learn ta, or this can actually be multiple. This can be ga, we see that. We see gitta, I see that. I see giga. Giga, gitta, ga, da. Yeah, that's pretty much the ways I see that. This way. These all mean the same thing. You'll see them all of those ways in the conjunct. Billy says, my right thumb is twice as big as my left. All right, get the other one to work then. Just all muscled out. It's funny. So we learn this means two, like in the books. I like to walk. But that ta can also mean other things. Like, it doesn't just mean two. It sort of means like the walking part is something that's not happening right now, or it's not reality. Okay, it's not. So when we think of it that way, it can actually mean like should, could, going to, it can sort of mean all of these things depending on the context. This is Plains Cree dialect Niuiwin. Yeah. Niuiwin Plains Cree. So in this context, when we look at this, Moi tamanistic, tamitstic. When we look at this one here, we see ta twice. So if we were to just interpret this as two, we'd say no, to want, things, to eat. So if you said it that way, I mean, it still kind of makes sense. Moi, or no, to want things, to eat. But if you put that in one breath, the way Ruben would say that, those ones, wouldn't be wanting for food. They wouldn't be in a position where they would want food to eat. To eat, this part definitely means to, or something like it. But when you interpret all of this together, let's go see what the English is over here. They would not run out of things to eat. Okay? So that's a really good study of ta right there, because it's used twice, and it really highlights how that can have different meanings, but they do sort of mean the same thing. So it's a negative here, namoya. This is sort of saying they wouldn't be wanting for food. Mageg segwa, wisipwitewak. Maga, we sort of mean, we learn that means like but. Egg, so that's it. Egwa, now, but when you put them together, what does that mean? Mageg segwa. That can be one of the tricky things, like I guess as a learner, my brain kind of knows what that means. They were going to leave, we sipuitewak, so this is a very simple verb. Sipuiteo is sipuiteo is like just that one leaves. Again, there's that ak on the end. Sipuitewak. We, we learn this means, this is kind of like they're going to or they intended to. We se puede wak. So let's go see what's the English say about this one. So it was decided. So there's actually quite a bit in that. Mageg segwa. There's implications here. So these three particles together in this particular part of the story, or this particular part of this paragraph, this sentence, it has implications. It has meaning. And this is why I study this, is because this is one of the more challenging things, in my opinion, in my experience, to learn and understand, is when you use these, what they call particles. Has a lot of meaning, has a lot of impact on the meaning. Maga generally means but. Maga. However, by contrast, but still, but then. You can also use maga in an interesting way in context as emphasis. If you ask somebody, tanse something, or tansoma, you can say tansoma and then something. Nimukuman. I lost my knife recently, so I'm asking this a lot. Tansoma mokuman, nimukuman. I can just say tanse nimukuman. It's just a plain sentence. Tanse nimukuman. Tansoma nimukuman. I'm now putting emphasis on there. But I can also say tansemaga, whereas it's almost like more emphasis to me. For me, I'm saying, but where's my knife anyway? Tansemaga nimukuman. Like confused now. Tansemaga. You can use maga in this way as well for emphasis. But normally it means like but. Maga, in this context, it means but. Maga exegwa. That's it for that. That's sort of how but that's it. That's it now, I guess, would be the direct translation. But it's like, that's it for that. It was, the translation here was, so it was decided. Egsegwa, that's the part that means and so to me. Egse. But I'm going to study this a little bit more at some point, because there's quite a bit in there. I'm going to read this whole thing over again, and then we'll go read all the English again one more time. We egote. Egagwa taga tiu tsiku magape puk. Not tagam. Elgo he atota mak elgo. Eu sa me atiet. Egote pasquag. Moita manis tik tamits tik. Magek segwa. We sepuitewak. People who lived in the woodlands in those days suffered hard times in the winter. But the cousins told them how plentiful the animals were there on the prairie. There they would not run out of things to eat. And so it was decided. They all wanted to go. See, that's interesting, that interpretation. They wanted to go. That's an interesting interpretation of that. Because want would be no te. To me, I'm like, why wouldn't you say no te? Why would you say we? But then that kind of makes sense, because we is like they intended to. These are the things that I study as a learner, trying to understand. Okay, let's keep going. Wawiwak. This is one of those, this is my tongue twister word, because it's so difficult to pronounce. Wawiwak. Wawiwak. Waway wak gwa I seen wak. There we are. Now I seen. It's not I seen wa anymore. It's I seen wak. And these have to have what they call number agreement. You don't need to know that. All that means is that this is plural. They were preparing. Wawayu is to prepare something, like to get ready. Wawayu. To prepare, to make preparations, to get ready. I guess it means you can get dressed too. I didn't know that. Gets ready by getting dressed. That makes sense. So because there's this ak on the end, then they're just being very clear who it was. I seen wak. The people got ready. So then the people got ready. Gape pipun. All winter long. Gape is like the whole time. If you say gape for the full duration. Gape mana, all the time. Gape gisagaw. Gape gisik all day. Gape gisik. In this context, gape pipun all winter. So they prepared all winter. Ematsta tikayag. I don't know this word. Tikayao. It sounds like, I wonder if it has to do with snow. Tikayao. What's that? Tikayao. Again, there's, it is in a melting stage. Interesting. Interesting. Again, because of that yag on the end, that k on the end, just like that, that conjugation tipped me off to assume that it was a double W. Dikayao. I made that assumption. It was that particular, like a weather term, basically. So when it started to thaw, is the way I interpret that. When it started to melt, that da, so that there's a word for this. The linguistic term is the reduplication, and so it's sort of, to me, I guess you'd say it wasn't just one event. It was happening on and off, I guess, as it was thawing, like in the season where it thaws and freezes and thaws and freezes. Maybe that's what it means. It's like an ongoing thing. And it's hard to explain in English, because when we tell a story, we wouldn't say, as it was continually thawing over and over again. You wouldn't really, like, and Nihuan is so much more descriptive sometimes, actually quite often, than we are in English. We would say, when it started to thaw in the spring. But this is just so much more descriptive, because it tells us that it was sort of happening over and over, I guess. Gate queskayag. Boy, there's a lot in there. Asaigo tegwa pespuitewak. They came to depart. So as it began to thaw, as they became, the way I understand this, gwesk, let's just look it up. I wonder if my brain read guayesk, but that's incorrect. On the other side, changing, gwesk, turning around. Okay, that makes sense. This is like a phrase. I don't quite understand what this means. Ayag. This is ayao. Oh, I got to solve my puzzle. Chisqua. Solve it again. Unable to verify. Did I just do it too fast? Holy. I solved my puzzle too fast twice in a row, and they almost kicked me off. So there you go. If you're going live, you got to solve your puzzle slow. Okay. Yeah, I don't fully understand this. Ate is like in the process of something. Progressively. It can mean, yeah, beginning to, starting to, progressively, gradually, proceeding. It's another one of those ones that's I find difficult to use correctly. Okay, let's go read the English and see what it says. All winter long the people are prepared. We got that. And as the season changed. Oh, it's a phrase. As the season changed, as soon as it began to thaw, they set out right away. Okay. And again, right away, like why wouldn't you say like mayo or like semak or something like that? But like it's a more, it's like the language is very general, hey? Like it's descriptive, it's specific, but it's general. Or like, I don't know, just the way you phrase things. But this is an interesting little phrase. Gaate, queskayag. If we look at this word ayaw, it's another one of those words can have just so many meanings. So many. Not this one. Not this one. And not that one. And not that one. This one. Ayag. It is there, it exists. It's just so vague and so, because it's like this is one of those words that can just mean so many things. But in this context, like it's just very general, very generally talking about the weather. And maybe the hint was like that we'd mentioned the thawing here. Because as it was beginning to thaw, Gatagweskayag, as it was changing, I guess. What an interesting phrase. And you know what's fun is I could have probably heard a fluent speaker say this 20 times in conversation and just had no idea what they were talking about. So that's really interesting. Keep that in my back pocket. So that I guess that's the part there that means to me that means they were already ready to leave. They had already prepared to leave. But did it mean that they left already? They set out right away. Okay. Atite sa. Here's another really interesting particle. Esa. Esa, which sort of just means apparently. Apparently. Yeah, apparently. I'm sure there's other ways you could define that. Esa. You hear it a lot in stories. Not clamshell, not Esa. This one. Not ace. Esa. As I understand it, reportedly, evidently, apparently. You use this when it's a retelling or a recount, or when you don't have firsthand knowledge or didn't, like especially in stories, because stories are passed on and passed on and passed on. So especially if a story happened gayasago, then you weren't there, so then you use that esa. But in this case, we're saying atitesa gigsatamwak. So some of them apparently they stayed. Ksatam is to stay with something. That one stays with something. Ksatam. You could teach that to your you could say that to your kids or your pets or something like hey, ksata, ksatamok. Stay there. Ksata. Gigasatamok. They stayed behind. Apparently some of the elders, the older ones. Oh, there's a big word here. I am Ayim. Sounds like it was hard. Ayimi. Holy tongue twister. Ayimi de stamuatik. Let's go see if we can find it. Ayimi de stamoil. That'd be the words. Not in there. Let's take the stamoil off the end and see what we get. No. Ayimitam. Considers something to be difficult. But there's more to that. And this is like a very interesting. Oh, because it's not well, let's go see what the I know you said you hear stum in there, but it has nothing to do with stum. This stamo means for someone else or for the benefit of someone else. Let's go read the English and see what it says. Some elders must have stayed behind, so there's their esa, they must have, concerned about the hardship of the travel. Which makes sense to me, but this is a very involved word. This is to think something is difficult. This is on somebody else's behalf. This connector is kind of breaking my brain because I'm gonna look up something. So there's this other site you can use, Ben Godden's site. I'm gonna go astum. Yeah, there's quite a few. Look at that. Astamo. Okay, I'm gonna have to study this. There's quite a few that have that way of saying it, that construction. Astamo. That's interesting. I wonder if it connects. Because ayimitam is a word on its own. Ayimitam. We just looked up, is to consider something difficult, to be hesitant or reluctant. Yeah, on their behalf. That stamo means on their behalf. So the way I interpret this is that the elders thought the other ones were going to be having a difficult time. This is the way my brain understands that. Anyway, we'll just keep going because that's for future study, that one. Okay. Gawe, which is like back or to like return. Gawe guan egse. So there we go. We got three particles. What does that mean? Gawe guan means the same. Egse means that's it. That would like if those are the raw interpretations of those words. But when you put them together, see if we could puzzle out what that means. Gawe guan egse. Gawe guan egse. I'll just keep reading a bit. Mito tich egwa e aswa hakik gawe uma sipik egwa uma git sipik gate the mehoma kisskats one CP. That's interesting. So you can see how now somebody asked before about uma. Now uma's in there a lot. Right? We're really kind of like emphasizing. Let's go read the English on this one. And so, in the same way, once again. Wow. See how much meaning there was just in those three words? Like, what a really interesting phrase. Same thing. Yeah, Kirk says same thing. See, if you grew up hearing the language, or you understand, like if you're a fluent speaker, then you understand this because you've heard it. But aya nianan ganotini yoyak. Us that didn't, we typically learn these words one at a time. So when I read this, gawe means back, like gawe. See, this is, when I looked that up, this is how I learned this word gawe. Back again, in return. Beagwan means the same. Egse means that's it. That's sort of how my brain understands those. But I'm shifting to a place where I need to understand what they mean together. Again, that's sort of why we're here studying this. But I'll hear if a fluent speaker say this like several times and not really understand what it means. That's why we study. To try and give my brain a leg up, give my brain a fighting chance the next time I'm listening to a fluent speaker and they say this or something like this. Try and sink some of that meaning in, right? And so in the same way once again. That's really cool. Like, what a cool phrase. Gawe. Gawe Beagwanegse. Yeah, that's really cool. Mito tik egwa yaswaha kik gawe umasipik egwa magitsipik gitami uma Saskatchewan CP. This comes from itam. We're going to break this down. Mito ti. What is that? They crossed it on. Oh, I see. On the raft. So this is on the raft. So this has a what's the word just for raft? Mito. A raft. Mitut. So on the raft, then Asuaham. So I know that this is because I studied the I see there's a few questions about the vocab. We'll come back to that in a second. Asuaham. Because of that, gik. That's a dead giveaway for me. Then I know this word is asuaham. It's got that ending in the third person form to cross the river. And I think we ran into this word already in this story. And then that gik, that's the plural version. They did. They crossed the river on a raft. Mitoti kegwa asuaha gik. They crossed the river. Gawe umasi peak. Egwoma gitsi peak. Again, back across the river. Is that what that means? Egwoma, and then across the big river, the one that's called Saskatchewan CP. Let's go read the English here, just so I make sure I understand. Once again, in the same way, they crossed the river on a raft, that great river called the North Saskatchewan. Interesting. Again, back across this river. I wonder, it says Egwaoma, but I feel like this is Eogoma. Eogoma Git Sipik to my learner brain would make more sense, but again, that's just me looking at it. Gaitami, the one that's called Saskatchewan CP. This is, sometimes you see this form here, Gaitami. That's just kind of the way you, there's still like, it's hard to describe what this is. The one that's called, it comes from this word here, itam. And you won't find this particular form, I don't think, in the dictionary. We can look that one up. And actually, you won't even find it in this particular form, I don't think, because it's just not in there. This is what they call, unspecified. So it kind of works like this. The verb type is a VTI. Oh, and by the way, I haven't brought the chart up. I should do that right now. Cree, literacy, decoder, ring, summary paradigm tables. If we go here and scroll down, and we'll use the Y dialect one, this one here. So if you're using this chart here, whenever I talk about that, oh, it's a dead giveaway, it's because I know these, right? Like that ahkik. So if we look at this, dami. This one actually has in it. That ahkik, asuahakik. That one is right here. This ahkik, it's right here. So because I know that ending, asuahakik, I know it's asuaham. That the yellow one here in this chart is it's the dictionary version is always the third person form in the Woven Gray dictionary anyway. But this one here, it comes from itam, but you won't find it in the dictionary because it's itam. But there's this form, if you say the third person form singular in the conjunct, it's eta. You would say it like that, eta. Minus says, can you say mihkoasani? Mihkoasani, that's how I'd say that. Redstone, or red rock, I guess you could say. There's this other, yeah, that makes sense. Mihkoasani, bloodstone, yep, that makes sense. The word for red and blood are like, they're kind of the same anyway. Mihko, Mihko. That third person form, sorry, I'm getting tired here. There's another form. If we did the obviate form, that would be it. That would be that other one. But there's this other form called the unspecified actor or ex actor, they'll say. Itami. And sort of, you don't find it in the dictionary. It's not really even in the literature or that stuff, but you hear fluent speakers say this all the time. So if you look up itam, that one means like to say about something, speak about something, say about something, means something, okay? Or called something, calls something thus. That one calls something, okay? So this would be like, as that one calls something, or it, we'll just say it, as that one calls it. This would be as that other one calls it. And the ex actor, that unspecified, would be as it is called. It's unspecific who's doing the calling, if you want to think of it that way, as it is called. And so that's sort of what this means anyway, keitami. This is a form that's also not really in the literature very much, but you hear it all the time, because there's ga itami. It would be called, it should be called, for it to be called. And then there's ga itami, which would mean like the one that's called. And then this one is what we're looking at right now, gaitami, which is being sort of abbreviated to this. And linguists and folks who know way more than me will argue about whether this is initial change or whatever. I don't know enough about that. But the way I would understand this, you might say, it gate to me. What does that mean? Oma gate CP gate to me, Oma. That would be called. It still kind of means would be called to me. Gate to me. God to me. It's kind of like this, the one that's called. It's sort of, I think it's basically the same as this. I feel like this long A and this I collapse together and just make this sound. I could be wrong about that. That's sort of how I understand that. Again, I'm willing to be wrong about that because I'm just a learner. But that's how I understand that. Gate to me, Oma. Sorry, that's a K, not a T. I don't know why I'm putting. See, I'm getting tired. You know, take it on, Oma. Gate to me. And fluent speakers often will spell that just like, sometimes just with the H, right? Gate to me. Or sometimes they'll just spell it with an I. Gate to me. Because that's how it sounds when you say it. But that's what that one is right there. And you hear this a lot. You hear it a lot. They think, yeah, thank you. Noel says, they think. Heg segota, egwa. And so there, Gagi oyo pigitotsik. Oyo pigitotsik. I don't know this word. I see nuak. Nanto. Egwanma. Gagi iti toagik. Ita gatsmustawit giteaya. Nanto ita gestapinani. Gatami. There it is again. Ego tenanto. Ego tegua. Gagi oyo pigito tik. Let's go look up this word and figure out what it means. Oyo pigito tik. So because again it's got that tik on the end, I'm going to look up oyo pigito. Let's see what that is. Nope. What is that word even? Kagyo pigito tik. Let's go read the English. And so there, in this way, the people grew in number. Oh, interesting. This is reduplication. It's funny. It's o pigito wak. Oh, pigito wak. They, yeah, to bring up isn't to raise. Yeah, Noel says. Yeah, the reduplication on the beginning threw me off. Sometimes you hear I guess in this particular case, oi, which makes sense. There's very regional variations. And then just a random nanto in the middle. The people grew in number around Prince Albert. I can never remember the name of this. That was right there. Gestapinani, as it is called. So there you go right there. That's that translation of that one right there. Gaitami, as it is called. So let's put that in there. As it is called. And again, I hear this a lot. You don't find it in the dictionary, you don't find it in any of the books, but you hear it a lot. As it is called. Gaitami. Ego te nanto, ego te egua, kagi oyo pigito tik. So it says, and so in this way the people grew in number around Prince Albert, as it is called. I've heard the elders say around there, that is where they multiplied. Let's read that in the language one more time. I like to do that because now it's like, I like to try and puzzle my way through it, be like, what are the pieces that I don't get? and then go read what the interpretation was, and then read it again and try and help my brain sink some of those words in. That's usually the way I do this. Existe e kwe tota man. Mana. Eg segota egwa. Kagi o yo pegito tsikai sinuak. Nanto. Egwanma. Kagi iti toagek. We'll look this up in a minute. Itagagi ats mostoit ke tiaya. Nanto ta. Kistapinani. Keitami. Egote nanto. Egote gagi o yo pegito tsik. Ititoagik. Gagi ititoagik. Ititoeo is going to be the word. So that gik, that's me to them. This is the author. Gatsamostoit, that they told me. Atsamostoit geteaya. Ititoeo. I don't know this word though. I hear someone. Okay, so I hear the elders. Gagi, the way I heard the elders. I'm gonna go read that one more time. I've heard the elders say around there. The English is so much more condensed. There's more to the Nihiuiwin. I heard when I heard them, when they told me the story. So the English is simplified. There's a little bit more to the Nihiuiwin. But anyway, that's that one. Etito. So that gik, that was a giveaway for that one. Gik. So that helps me find that word to know that that's etito. So then I can go look that up for myself. That gik, if I go back to this one here. I have a video on this one here on my YouTube. How to read this orange and blue part. And then I know that gik, it's right here in blue. This part right here. This one, gik, right there. If you're following along, you have that chart. Go out if you're into the grammar. If not, you don't have to learn it that way. You don't have to study it that way. I did, because I wanted to know. I started leaning into the trying to understand the grammar. I wonder if I wrote those down. I was taking this class with Ruben Quinn, and I was trying to understand. I don't know if I have it written down here. I'll just write it out again. I was trying to understand. I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "How do you say, I want to eat?" And he said, "Ninote mitsun." I'm like, "Oh, okay." How do you say, you want to eat? And he said, "Genote mitsun." I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Want to eat. I'm like, okay, how do you say, I want you to eat? And he said, "Kintoemten I'm like, what? Note wasn't in there anywhere. How does that work? Kintoemten, to da. There's that da. We just talked about that. Mitsuin. I want you to eat. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But I learned suddenly that there's different types of verbs or different types of action words. And it gets into this whole rabbit hole. This is a verb that involves one person. So is this one. But this is a verb that involves two people. Kintoemten, I want you. Kintoemen, you want me. And then there's conjunct. There's different ways of saying all these when you get a verb. So that's why I used this and study this, because these are all of the people. These are all of the other people. And these are all of the combinations of the interactions in between them. In the the blues going this way and the orange going this way. So I have a video on that tying into some of this. And then just incidentally, the other verb paradigms are in here too. The VII, the VTI, and the VAI. So I spent a couple of years and just studied. Just a couple at a time, one or two, just trying to learn a little bit. And then over time, and now I know most of these. So now I'm studying stories to try and understand words like gawe. Oh, Juniper, that's a tobacco question. To answer that on my live, you have to send me tobacco first. Okay, let's keep going. We still got a little bit of time. We'll go 10 more minutes here, and then we'll shut her down. Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community experience. If you're gonna call me a tisk, you should say it in the language. Okay, let's do the next one. Astam etegua. So in this case, so the way I understand this, if you say astam, you understand that means come here, but it doesn't just mean come here. Astam can mean closer. So astamete is kind of like on this side. Ite is like where, but not the question where. It's more like a statement where. But astamete, to me, this means like, would it be like since then? Astamete. What does it say in here? Astamete. Might not even have it. Astamete. Let's try this one word. Astamete. Later. Yeah, so like later. Since that time, later, on this side, or closer. Well, and I didn't even know you could say this. Astamete ke. I've never even, that's interesting. Astamete se. So there's all these different ways you can say. Astamete gua, so later, but they're being specific, later on. Natami se. Natami. I forget what that word means. Natami. Natami. Upstream. It's one of those words I just can't get into my brain for some reason. Natami. Epeates ise. Mitse titaisinu. Further upriver. Mitse tu. Why would that be? That's one of those words. Mitse tu. See? Oh, they to have a large family. So they started to become a large, would you say community or clan maybe? I see. You'll see that sometimes, like when you look at the verb mitsetuak, usually when you look up verbs, this type of verb, like atsimo or notegateo, you see the singular person form, but there are some words that are just naturally plural. And sometimes you'll see that fluent speakers, even though it's implied, like a plural, it's the fluent speaker will speak in a singular form. And I think it's just, again, a more general way of speaking. So later on, upstream, I guess, they became plentiful, these people. This one here, that tit on the end, again, that singular form that tells me that Papa Ipitsu, they moved around camp, if we look that one up. This is a really interesting word, actually. Ipitsu. That's going to be this one here. Papa Ipitsu. Move around, travel around, camp here and there. That pitsu, that pitse, is really, you can say this in so many ways. Apetipitu, like just to move in general. Sipwepitu, like there's just so many. It's a really useful, they call that when you have one little slice of meaning like that, they call that a morpheme. It's just like one unit of meaning. Juniper says, how do I say Wendy's chili fights snake in my... I'm not sure how to say that. Sorry. Addie, what is this website called? Is this one here. I'm on Cree Literacy Network. So if you go Cree Literacy Network, and if you go here, click on the burger, and if we're under here on read and listen, Atsmona, and then I'm in the, I gotta scroll way down, but we're on this story here, Cree Stories of the Horse and Buffalo. We're on this one. This is the one we're working on today. And we are on stanza 28. We're just kind of breaking things down a bit. How do I, Juniper says, how do I say I like it when she yells at me? Everything got depoisit. I don't know how you'd say that. I do this every Sunday, yeah. We're just about ready to wrap up. I go till 8 o'clock Pacific. I'm in West Kelowna, so I usually start at 6 and go till 8. Yeah, just work through stuff. It's just like studying and working on, right? What does the different stuff mean? E papa mipitsit. E papa mipitsit. We egi misit tawaik. So I think in this case, remember we looked up "wea" earlier, and in some contexts it can mean like, I think it said it can be like because. Yeah, for or because. And I think this is one of those contexts where it means because. They would move around when they, because there was egi misitawayik. What's interesting here is we don't say egi misitawag. This word is tawao. We learned that word means a tawao, like welcome, but what it really means is there's room. Tawao means there's room. Tawao, you are welcome. This is sort of the connotation, come in, you are welcome here, but what it literally means is there's room. It is open, there's an opening, there's room. It has room. Tawao. So this is one of those ones where it's like, okay, I understand all of these words. I understand all of these words, but when you put them together, I kind of know what's going on here. We're going to go over and read the English in just a second. I'm just going to I'm going to read through it one more time, see if my brain can puzzle out what it means. Stametegwa natamihse e peatis mitse tetaisinu e papamiptsit wea egi misitawayek natamih egwa esayis kagi pes puititik. Yeah. Let's just go read the English and see what it says. As the population grew, they started moving out upstream towards the west. That's actually really interesting. My thing broke. Natami. I wonder if that's one of those words. I've got a stack of books here. There's some old words for the directions. I'd have to go flip through that book. And I was sitting with Kenny Roach one day, And he was telling me these old words for the directions. Nowadays we say like Sagaste no kay apita gisagansi Baksimota is west, and then Giwetnok. But he was telling me these other words. Natami, I think, was one of those old words where we interpret that as upstream, but in the context, it's implying west, which is interesting. They moved their camp often as the country was wide open. They kept on moving west. So there's that because. We egi mistawaik. E papamipsit. We egi mistawaik. Natami kego is aisk. E gagi pe sepuiti tik. So the English isn't a direct translation, but it's close. Oh, are we getting? No, we're not even close to the end of this. We'll do one more. Egwaigsiwia. Eogo pitamauma. This is 6 particles in a row. There isn't a single noun or verb in this whole phrase. And yet, I bet there's a ton of meaning in here. Let me see if we can figure out what it means. And that was it for that one. Eogo pitama uma. Pitama is like for the time being. It's almost like they're saying that's all they did for a while. That's sort of how I interpret that. That's it. That. And that was what they did for a while. And like oma is like emphasis. What does it say on the... Oh, that's all for this story for now. So overcomplicating this. So we're at the end of this story. Oh no, see, there's more. There's way more. Okay, maybe it's another story. That's okay. Yeah. This is another story right here. Okay, so we finished this one. Egweg siwia elgo pitama uma. Moi metne nema metne atotain. I didn't really tell a lot, I guess. I iskin ways gatotain, because for a long time we kamitne atotaman. I did not tell the whole story because if I did, it would take a lot longer to tell, they say. I'm going to read through that one more time. Egwegse, we go pitamauma. Moi metanin nama metane atotain aiskin ways and atotain we gametone atotaman. That's interesting use of metone as a preverb as opposed to a particle. Metone. Fully, I guess. See. Mountain Man, Foothills Powwow, August 20th, Sunchild First Nation. I would love to have you come say a few words. Oh, I appreciate that. Geez, August, I don't know if we're going to be anywhere near Sunchild. We're coming out that way. We're going to be in Hinton next week for the fast. And then we're going to be in Edmonton for a bit. And then in July, I'm going to Sweetgrass for a week, and then we're going back out to Hinton. August, I'm not sure what we're doing yet. Boy, get me to say a bunch of words in front of people. I don't know. Put me on the spot, make me nervous. I appreciate the sentiment. What words would you have me say? Emmy says, oh, what did Juniper learn so much? I appreciate the kind words as long as you don't call me a teacher. And that last one, Juniper asks, how do you say Wendy's chili fights like a hawk and snake in my heart? I think he would just say heartburn. That's a good one, heartburn. Heartburn. That's how you say that. Headache, pain, toothache, indigestion. That's your word. It's the one you want right there. That's how you say Wendy's chili fights like a hawk and snake in my heart. Pass me a thumb. Nagisuwas katan. That's how you say that. Too funny. Oh, just to speak on how important our language is. Yeah. What are my thoughts on that? I would have no problem coming and talking about how important the language is and repeating the words of our elders. I do think that's a big thing. Let me turn this around. How do you pronounce pain? Day, I would say that. But you could say like, nan, I have a headache. Nan. Day. I didn't know this one. Nitewapitan. I wonder if you could say that. Nitewapitan. That bit, that part right there means tooth. Nipit. Nitewapitan. Let me get this spun around. Mountain Man, yeah, reach out. Send me a message and we can chat for sure. That's not a problem. We're just going to go for 10 more minutes here. I'll just flip my camera around so we can visit at the end of the... I got to figure out how to do that every time. Flip camera. Dan Skakyu. Yep. Asay mi nakakyu kananaskum tina. Wow. Kakyu gapi gilgui. Everybody that come to visit tonight. Appreciate you. I hope you got something out of the live. I hope your thumbs aren't too sore. I see we got like a record number of likes on this live, so I appreciate that. I go every Sunday night. Next Sunday, we're going to be streaming live from Hinton, from the fasting camp. We might keep it a little bit shorter because I'll be on cell power out there next week. So maybe we'll just read a bit or... yeah, and then the following week, we're going to go to Edmonton after that, so we'll see it. But every Sunday, I usually go around the same time, Sunday nights. If there's any last questions, where's everybody from? We still got a few people hanging out. Mountain Man, sounds like you're from Sunchild. Is that a question? Vault says shadow. Is that a question? Like, how do you say shadow? Tigast. Shadow. What's shadow again? Tigast sinuan. The guy's from La Crosse, Saskatchewan. Monantonia. Is that the guy number one? We grew up in Rocky Mountain House, right by Sunchild. Sunchild O'Cheese. Go out that way pretty regularly, actually. Tansi Sigason. Mountain Man. Tansi Sigason. Asiniwati Inu. Itagwe. Oh, okay, Darcy, good running. Pagkagam, Gweski, nagskata no asay. Darcy, maybe we've run into each other out there. Waska Gins from Quebec. Katie Rose from Alberta. It's always just kind of nice to know everybody's tuning in from. Don't feel obligated to say anything, though. If you just want to linger, that's fine, too. Any last questions before we go? I'm getting deadly hungry. Bain no tegetan. Egwa. I'm gonna go have something to eat here right away. I always come up on 6 o'clock on Sunday and think, oh, I should have probably had a snack before I started my live, and then I can smell somebody cooking supper. And they've all finished eating already. I say, geese mitsutik. Okay, will do. I'll take a screenshot here. Stupid. There we go. Hey, Nikki, how did Convo Group go? Hey, by the way, if you're in Calgary, they fired up a conversational Cree group in Calgary. It's on the Blackfoot Trail at the Blackfoot Diner. I forget the address off the top of my head. Wednesdays at 5:30. So it's been 3 weeks now. Had some other people show up this week. All had India exactly. I'm not even sure what's for supper. I can smell it though. Paswa thank you. Sag 4200 says I'm Stone Bear. Can you say it? I wouldn't even try. I would say if you're able to go back and ask the elder who gave you that name, Stone Bear. There's probably a couple ways you could say that, and there's different types of. I mean, I could guess, but it wouldn't be right, so I don't usually try and guess at names. The conversational Cree group, there's a post on my TikTok. It's like a big kind of, is it a blue or green poster? There's that one, and then you can reach out. I can send you the details. Yeah. Mountain Man says, Atsin Muskwa. I would Stone Bear. Like, yeah, there's ways. Stone's Asini. So I guess you could say Asini Muskwa. Maybe you could say that. But again, I'm not a fluent speaker, so I don't do names. Because sometimes the name that you get sometimes could be very specific. And it could be a very specific bear name that you were given too, right? So it could be wrong. If you can go back to the elder that gave you that name, that's always best. And get it from them. Yeah. All right, we're going to go just a couple more minutes here before we shut it down. If there's any last questions. That conversational Cree group, it's in Calgary on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday at 5:30 at the Blackfoot Diner. No, you don't have to be. It's for learners specifically. And Katie asked, Katie, hope I'm saying that right. Do you have to be fluent? I've only been learning for the past 6 months. Conversational group is a perfect place for learners because you get to share what you learn with other learners. Yeah, like Nikki says, just go. And if fluent speakers show up, great. And if not, then it's a really great opportunity to. I learned more at conversational Cree group from other learners than probably all of the time I spent with fluent speakers combined, because you get a chance to talk about, you get to ask a lot of questions. Like if you go to think about this, you go to a class and like you get to ask maybe a couple questions in class, but then it's like over Zoom and the time ends or whatever. Some people just never ask questions in class. Like maybe you don't feel comfortable, right? The thing that makes conversational group work really well is when you have the same people or the general same group showing up over and over and over again. You get to know each other. You start to feel comfortable. Everybody starts bringing things every week, right? You start bringing different, oh, I found this book. Oh, hey, I heard this word. Oh, this person said this thing. Have you heard this before? And you get to talk about it and really discuss the things that you never really get to discuss in class. Because in class, you don't want to take up everybody's time, right? But at conversational Cree group, that's your time. You're there for you. Everybody's there for the same reason. And then a fluent speaker shows up and you get to ask them questions, and it's very unstructured and it's just very casual. And if you just keep it casual and unstructured, it's just like everybody's having a bite to eat and having some coffee or tea, and just like you can share the little bit that you know, or you can listen. Sometimes two fluent speakers will show up, then they start talking to each other, and then all of the learners get really quiet and listen. You know, it's pretty cool. And you can pick up a lot of language, you can ask a lot of questions, and it's just casual. So it's really great if you're a learner. Just go. Just go when you can. And the cool thing about it, there's a conversational Cree group in Edmonton that Wayne Jackson started in 2008. I used to go when I was in Edmonton. Wayne would even show up every once in a while because it was at the same place for the longest time. And I was chatting with Wayne the other day, and I was like, that conversational group, he's like, when did you start that? Because he started that Facebook group too, in 2011, I think, or 2010, or maybe before then. I was like, when did you start that conversational group? He was like, 2008. It's still going. It's almost 20 years ago, right? 16 years ago, he started that conversational group. 17 years. And just different people just as long as people show up, it's still going. As long as one person shows up, it's still going, right? You get a different mix of people every week, and then you get a core group that shows up every week, and it's just go. It's great. Okay, it's 8 o'clock. Ay na ne utapaiga ne guaya. Gagisitaan. Higisitano egwa. We're done now. Nikki says, I will be there on Wednesday at the Blackfoot Diner. Just come and introduce yourself. And if you're running out of stuff to do, just bring something to work on. Bring your Matsunihui in, or your Cree language of the plains or whatever, and just practice. And yep, give me asking. Just go. Holy Bill Relic just showing up late to the party. And if you don't make this one, Katie, show up at the next one. Go the next week, or go when you're able. That's the wonderful thing about conversational group. You just show up when you're able, and that's what keeps it going. You get a different mix of people every time. So bring your friends. Tell everybody you know. Kinsto sin tapue kinino tegatan negwa. Gonna go eat. Kanto nuinto meat son negwa. Paino tegatan. Okay, I'm gonna shut it down for now. Asay mi nakakio kitam skat now. Kanaskum tinawaw kakio gapi tago siniik. Kagisitano egwa, we're gonna be done now. And I'll be back next week at 6 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Mountain. I don't know what time it is in Saskatchewan, 8 o'clock. Next week, next Sunday, I'll be tuning in from the bush. Okay, we'll see you then. Buenas estás?